My name is Lauren Mitchell. I'm 29 years old, and up until about 8 months ago, I genuinely believed my family loved me the way I loved them. I grew up in a regular house in Ohio, middle kid, decent grades, never caused drama, never asked for too much. I was the quiet one, the one who remembered birthdays, the one who drove 4 hours to show up when my mom had her knee surgery, the one who sent money when my brother needed help with rent, twice, without being asked twice. I thought that's what family did. You just show up. No questions, no scorecards, you just show up. And I thought of all the moments in my whole life, of all the dates circled on every calendar I ever had, there was one day, one single day, that I was absolutely certain my family would show up for me. My wedding day. I'd been with my husband Daniel for 4 years. We got engaged on a Tuesday evening in November. Nothing fancy, just him, me, and a small ring on the kitchen counter that he'd been saving for since the summer. I called my mom before we even told his family. I was shaking, I was crying, I was laughing all at the same time. She sounded happy. She said all the right things. She said she couldn't wait. She said she already knew exactly what dress she was going to wear. She said this was going to be the best day. I believed every single word. The wedding was set for the first Saturday in April. Nothing over the top, just a venue outside the city, about 80 guests, Daniel's family and friends, my coworkers, a few old college friends, and my family. My mom, my dad, my brother Marcus, my sister Jenna, and a couple of cousins. That was my side. That was it. And I was fine with that. I didn't need a crowd. I just needed them. 3 weeks before the wedding, Marcus mentioned something at Sunday dinner. He said he'd found a deal on a Maldives trip. Group package, his girlfriend's birthday, flights, and resort included. My mom immediately perked up like he just announced he won something. She started asking about dates, asking about the resort, asking if there was a deal for extra rooms. I sat there eating my food, and I didn't say anything yet because the dates weren't confirmed. I told myself it was probably nothing. 10 days before the wedding, my mom called me while I was picking up my alterations. She said the dates were finalized. The trip was the same weekend as my wedding. She said it in this tone like she was just giving me a weather update. She wasn't asking me anything. She was telling me. I stood in the middle of that bridal shop holding my dress in a bag, and I asked her to say it again. She said the flights were already booked, it was a group deal, it was non-refundable, and that we'd do a celebration dinner when they got back. My sister Jenna texted me the next day, not a call, a text. She said she was sorry, but the trip was already paid for, and she couldn't lose that money, and she'd send a gift. Marcus didn't even reach out. He posted on his Instagram that night, a sunset photo with a caption that said, "Big moves," and a palm tree emoji. I didn't respond to any of them. I sat in my car in the parking lot outside the bridal shop for a long time. I didn't cry right then. I was too numb to cry. Something went very cold and very quiet inside me, the kind of quiet that doesn't go away. The morning of the wedding, my dad called from an airport gate while their layover flight was boarding. He said he was sorry. He said they'd make it up to me. He said I'd understand someday when life got complicated. He sounded distracted. I could hear Marcus laughing about something in the background. I said, "Okay, Dad." I said it calm. I said it flat. And I hung up. I put on my dress. I let Daniel's mom fix my veil. I walked down that aisle to a room that was full on his side and had exactly 3 people on mine. 2 coworkers and a neighbor who drove 40 minutes because she said there was no way she was letting me stand alone. While Daniel cried looking at me, I looked at those empty white chairs on my side and I made myself a very quiet, very private promise. Not a threat, not a threat, not a scene, just a decision. And I held it right there in my chest through the entire ceremony because some things, once you see them, you cannot unsee. And some promises you only need to make once. The honeymoon was just 5 days in Nashville because that's what we could afford after paying for the wedding mostly on our own. Daniel never once brought up my family's empty chairs. Not once. He just held my hand a little tighter every time I got quiet, and that told me everything I needed to know about the man I married. When we got back home, the texts started coming in. My mom sent a video of the resort pool with a little message underneath that said, "Wish you were here, thinking of you newlyweds." My sister sent a photo of a meal she ordered at some beachfront restaurant with a caption that said, Ordered the lobster for you in spirit. Marcus didn't send anything for 3 days. And then he sent a single voice memo that was 40 seconds of him basically saying the trip was amazing and that Daniel and I should come visit the Maldives someday like we were all still completely good. I read every single message. I didn't respond to a single one. Not because I was throwing a fit, not because I was doing some dramatic silent treatment, but because I genuinely did not know what I would say that wouldn't either burn everything down or completely let them off the hook. So I said nothing. I just watched. My mom called on a Tuesday evening about 2 weeks after we got home. I let it go to voicemail. She left a long message about the trip being wonderful and how she'd been meaning to call and how we really needed to plan that celebration dinner soon. She said soon like it was still a real thing, like there was still a version of this story where we all sat around a table and laughed it off over pasta. I saved the voicemail. I don't know why exactly. I just did. I kept going to work, kept coming home, kept cooking dinner with Daniel, kept living my regular life. But something in me had shifted so completely that I could feel it in how I answered questions at family group chats. Short answers. Polite but closed. My cousin Brenda noticed first. She texted me privately and said she was sorry she hadn't made it to the wedding and that she'd heard what happened with the Maldives trip and that it was messed up. That was the first time anyone in the family used the words messed up about any of this. And I almost cried reading it because I had started to wonder if I was the crazy one. I wasn't. About 6 weeks after the wedding, something happened that I wasn't expecting. Marcus's girlfriend, the one whose birthday the whole trip was for, her name is Priya, and she has a younger sister named Sasha who was getting married in September. And apparently the whole family had been invited. My mom called me on a Friday afternoon, and this time I answered. She was in full planning mode. She was talking about what to wear, about whether we should all drive together or take separate cars, about how she wanted to get there early to get good seats, and then she said it. She said, and obviously you and Daniel are coming, right? We'll all go together. It'll be so nice, the whole family at a wedding again. I let her finish. I let her get all the way through that sentence. I let the silence sit for just a second, and then I said, I don't think I'm going to make it, Mom. And she immediately said, What do you mean? It's Priya's sister. You know her. It'll be fun. And I said, I know, but I just don't think I can make it that weekend. She pushed back. She said it was months away. She said I had plenty of time to arrange things. She said Daniel and I should really start making more of an effort with family events. And that word hit me somewhere so specific that I had to actually put the phone against my chest for a second just to breathe. Effort. She used the word effort. I put the phone back to my ear and I said, Okay, Mom, I'll think about it. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just got off the phone, sat down on the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinet, and stared at the wall for a while. Daniel came in, saw my face, didn't ask any questions, just sat down next to me on the floor. And right there, I told him everything I had been holding since April, all of it. And when I finished talking, he looked at me and said, So what do you want to do? And I finally knew exactly what I wanted to do. Daniel didn't try to talk me out of anything. He didn't say be the bigger person. He didn't say you'll regret it. He didn't give me any of that advice that sounds wise, but really just means swallow it and move on. He just said, whatever you decide, I'm with you. And that was enough. I spent the next few weeks being very normal. I answered texts a little more. I showed up to a family dinner in August. I smiled. I passed the bread. I asked my mom about her garden. I was warm enough that nobody got suspicious, but closed enough that I wasn't giving anything away. My sister Jenna kept trying to make small talk about Priya's sister's wedding like it was already settled that we were all going together. She mentioned the venue once, mentioned the dress code once, even sent me a link to a hotel nearby in case we wanted to make a weekend of it. I said thanks every time. I never confirmed anything. September came faster than I expected. The week of Sasha's wedding, my mom called 3 times in 4 days. The first call was to confirm our plan. The second call was to ask what color I was wearing so they didn't clash. The third call was the Friday night before the Saturday wedding, and she sounded genuinely excited, like this was going to be a beautiful family moment. I answered that third call. I let her talk for a few minutes about the ceremony time and the parking situation, and how she'd heard the venue had gorgeous grounds. And then I waited for a natural pause and I said, "Mom, I have to be honest with you. I'm not coming tomorrow." The silence on her end was immediate and total. Then she said, "What do you mean you're not coming, Lauren? We talked about this." And I said, "I know, but I won't be there." She asked if something was wrong, if Daniel was okay, if something had come up. And I said, "Nothing came up. I just won't be there." And then I said the thing I had been quietly carrying since April. I said, "The same way nothing came up for you in April." I said it calm, no edge in my voice, no tears, just fact. The silence after that was a completely different kind of silence. She started to say something and then stopped. She tried again and said, "Lauren, that was a very complicated situation. You know the trip was already booked." And I said, "I know, Mom. Mine is too." She asked what that meant. I said, "I have plans I can't move, just like you did." She said, "That is not the same thing at all." And I said, "You're right, it's not, because mine was a wedding." And I left that land. I didn't hang up angry. I didn't raise my voice once. I said I loved her and I'd talk to her soon, and I got off the phone. Then I turned to Daniel, who was sitting across the room pretending to read, and I said, "Done." And he put the book down and said, "How do you feel?" And I said, "Honestly, I feel fine." The next day, while Sasha's wedding was happening, Daniel and I drove 2 hours to a little inn we'd found online, ordered room service, watched a movie, and slept in until 10. It was one of the most peaceful Saturdays I'd had in years. The family group chat was active all day with photos from the wedding. Everyone dressed up, everyone smiling, a whole row of my family sitting together looking beautiful. My mom texted me privately that night. She said, "We missed you today." I said, "I know." That was it. Over the next few weeks, something shifted in the family dynamic in a way that nobody said out loud, but everyone felt. My mom called more. My sister started texting differently, softer somehow, less assuming. Marcus actually called one Sunday and didn't talk about himself the whole time, which was basically a first. Nobody ever said the word sorry directly, but the calls got gentler. The effort got more real, and I started answering more, not because I forgot what happened, but because I decided that people sometimes need to feel the weight of a chair left empty before they understand why showing up matters. I never made a speech. I never sent a long message. I never explained myself in a group chat. I just did exactly what they did. And somehow that quiet, simple, completely calm decision said more than any words I could have found. Daniel and I are doing great. We're happy. And I will never again wait for someone to prove they love me. I already know who shows up.